book friends, what's up? It's Diana and this is my first Top 5 Wednesday. Technically it's actually Tuesday, but by the time you see this, it will be Wednesday. So I'm not lying, really. Top 5 Wednesday was started by Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey, so I will link her channel and the Goodreads group down below. Check them out and join us if you got some time and some thoughts. We'd love to have you. The way it works is that every Wednesday we are given a top 5 list that we have to come up with. This week's topic is top 5 required reading books. So basically you pick your top 5 favorite books that you were required to read. Now you could have been required to read them in elementary school, in high school, in college, just as long as somebody else told you needed to read this book. And I have been studying literature for decades. My undergrad was in English literature. I'm getting my master's in English and creative writing. So I've read a lot of books that people have told me that I needed to read. And I honestly thought that I was gonna have a really hard time coming up with 5 books that I actually enjoyed that were required reading. But there's actually quite a few books that I enjoyed that people made me read. It was harder than I thought. Number 5 books that I was required to read is Magnolia by A. Van Jordan. This is actually a collection of poems inspired by a real event. In 1936, Magnolia Cox, a 13-year-old African-American girl, won the Ancon District Spelling Bee and was the first African-American girl to make it to the national round. It is believed that the Southern judges didn't want her to win the competition, so they gave her a word that was not on the approved spelling bee list. Ironically enough, that word: Nemesis. This is a fictional collection of poems surrounding that event and detailing different parts of her life and her family life. I read this freshman year of college, and to this day it remains one of the most beautiful collection of poems I've ever read in my life. I don't read poetry that much anymore, but every couple of years I reread this simply because the words and the prose and the lyricalness of it is just beautiful. Number 4 is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a dystopian novel that takes place in a world where women are stripped of all freedom. They don't have access to money, they can't have jobs, they're not allowed to read, they're not allowed to have an education at all, and they are essentially used as birthing vessels. And it's a story of Offred adjusting to this new role she's playing, as she used to have a husband and a job and access to money. She used to have a life with a lot of freedom, and the world has completely changed. I read this book, I think, my freshman year in college, and it blew my mind. I was familiar with dystopian novels because I'd read The Giver and 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, but this was eye-opening. And honestly, the starkness of it stayed with me for years after I read it. The third book on my list is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I read this a few semesters ago for my grad school course, and I fell in love with it. It is a hilarious and heartbreaking coming-of-age story following Junior, who desperately wants to get off his reservation and build a better life for him. So he decides to go to a mostly white school hours away from the reservation. And this decision is met with anger and confusion from all different parties. From the people on the reservation, from the people in the school, and Junior basically doesn't have a real place that he can call his for most of the novel. He's not really accepted by his own people, and he's not really accepted by the white people either. And he sort of struggles to figure out who he is and what it means to him in the end. And it's told in prose and with illustrations throughout the entire book, and I like how Alexie took very serious topics and handled them with humor, grace, and honesty. His writing made me feel so many different things, and I just really think this is a great novel. Number 2 on this list is Jack Kerouac's On the Road, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to have this answer. A lot of people think this is kind of a pretentious book, and in some aspects I kind of agree. It's definitely the book that gets mentioned most at parties. I can't tell you the number of times where I've said, oh yeah, I like books, and they're like, oh, I read On the Road, and I'm like, great. What did you think? And they're like, huh? What? I liked it. And that's as far as the conversation goes. And this is actually kind of the story of Jack Kerouac and his friend as they travel through North America in the middle of the Beat Generation. And while it might be a cliche answer, this has some of the best prose, the best quotes, the best lines that have stayed with me for years after I've read it. I think this novel is actually magic. It's really just gorgeous and poignant, and a lot of the scenes are so descriptive that you feel like you were there and it becomes a part of you. I don't know, I think this is just a book that gets in your soul. And my number 1 pick for books that were required reading is Joseph Heller's Catch-22. I read Catch-22 my senior year of high school, and I remember not knowing whether I should be laughing or crying. And the answer was kind of both. So Catch-22 follows Yossarian as he is trying to get out of a war. However, his colonel keeps raising the number of flight missions they have to complete before they're released. And the only way to get out of the war is to prove that you're crazy. Unfortunately, the act of proving that you're crazy and the fact that you do not want to be in this war automatically proves that you're sane. So it is, in fact, a catch-22, which is where the title comes from. This is an absurd novel, and the entire premise is crazy, the entire story is a little crazy, but it's wonderful. It is also very serious at parts, and I really like the juxtaposition of humor and gravity. Actually, Catch-22 is my all-time favorite novel, which I do not think my 12th grade English teacher, Mr. Howard, would have expected. So thank you, Mr. Howard, for making this required reading. It's my favorite book. And that's all I've got for Top 5 Wednesday. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I've been trying to make a video for Top 5 Wednesday for weeks, and I'm just now finally getting to do it. So I am really happy right now. Now I'm gonna go check out your videos because I like all your faces. I'll see you soon. Bye!